right, Alexander, let's talk about Justin Trudeau's speech to the United Nations, which actually took place in the end of September. But the video has now surfaced, and it went viral today all over Twitter. Tucker Carlson actually had a great segment where he talked about Justin Trudeau's speech to the United Nations. He also highlighted the book by Klaus Schwab called CV19, The Great Reset. Klaus Schwab is the guy that runs the World Economic Forum. A lot of people have been talking about the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, for some time now, especially in conjunction with what's going on with the pandemics and the lockdowns. But up until today, it's actually kind of been thought of as conspiracy theory, and a lot of people have labeled you some sort of crackpot. These are things that Tucker Carlson said, by the way, too. No, these aren't my ideas. Tucker Carlson highlighted this. But all of a sudden, you have the Prime Minister of Canada talking about this openly. And he said some eye-opening things, and I'll quote those things in the second part of the video, in the next segment. But Alexander, first of all, your first thoughts as to what Justin Trudeau said and the impact it's going to have on how people view this World Economic Forum idea of a great reset.
Yes. I mean, the first thing to say is it's fascinating that we've only found out about it now. I mean, this is the Prime Minister of Canada, an important world leader. He comes along, he talks to the UN, he says all these extraordinary things, which, as you absolutely rightly say, prove that all of these things that people have been talking about, which we've been saying is alarmist, and that there's no truth to this, and people who are worrying about these things are theorizing and fantasizing, and there's no basis in it. And well, it turns out the Prime Minister of Canada not only confirms it, he actually wants it. He's looking forward to it. He's a promoter of it. He's an architect, at least in his own vision. He actually wants it to happen. He talks quite openly about, this huge opportunity that the pandemic has provided us with. To reset everything in this fashion. So, all these people who've been telling us for weeks and months, and in fact for a very long time, and talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution has been around now for some years, that this is all, a complete fantasy, and that, we don't need to be worried or concerned about it because this isn't anybody's agenda. Well, it turns out that it is, or at least if it isn't, somebody hasn't told Justin Trudeau. He believes in it and he wants it, and he's absolutely he likes the fact that he's part of this great elitist conspiracy to carry it out. He likes it so much that he's bragging about it in UN forums, and somebody obviously was so unhappy about that of course they tried to keep his speech silent. So, we didn't hear about it for weeks. And it's not surprising that it's now going viral and it's been commented about by people like Tucker Carlson, because, of course, it's, pretty explosive stuff at the end of the day, because here we have the Prime Minister of Canada, always somebody we always knew was, neoliberal globalist figure. And, he's confirmed what are for many people their worst suspicions.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole premise of the Agenda 2030, which used to be the Agenda 21, now it's been rebranded Agenda 2030, is this, and it's actually on the WEF website. Actually, I think they might have taken it off, to be honest, the other day, but it was on the WEF website. And it's this whole thing of, and I'll just read you the quote: "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy." That's in essence the economic policy that these guys want to push. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yes.
And Justin Trudeau, he said some interesting things during his speech to the United Nations, this Zoom, I guess it was like this Zoom call speech. He said, "This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset." He said, "This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change." Of course, climate change. And he said, "Building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining our momentum in reaching the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Alexander, we've seen Build Back Better via Boris Johnson. We've seen Build Back Better slogans used via Joe Biden. We've seen Build Back Better slogans used by Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. So a lot of people have been using this Build Back Better slogan as well. Now we see Justin Trudeau saying it. What are your thoughts on this Great Reset from an economic standpoint? Obviously, they're talking a lot about inequality and poverty and all that. At the end of the day, this is about economic dominance and remaking the global economic system into a globalist system. What do you make of this? Is this really? I mean, they believe it. There's no doubt they believe it, but is it realistic?
It's completely unrealistic. What it is about all embracing control. I mean, you control production through, all kinds of new technologies. That's the fourth industrial revolution part of it. So you control production, you control consumption, you control the way people behave, what they do, and it's all encompassing. I mean, it's a central planner's dream. I mean, the Soviet Union would be green with envy if they were to see all of this, because it goes far beyond anything that they ever imagined or envisaged, and it would be global, obviously, because you can't have it operating this kind of system in one part of the world and not in any other, and not in others. So it would be global. And of course, when they say you wouldn't own anything, that doesn't mean that there wouldn't be ownership. What it would mean is ownership and control will be concentrated in a microscopically small number of people. I mean, it would be a profoundly oligarchic, technocratic system. Now, there have been many attempts in history to create that. As I said, the Soviet Union is the most celebrated and the most recent. The point is they all fail. They all come up against the reality that people will not be controlled in that way. But, some people want it. And those people, I have to say, I do sometimes wonder whether perhaps they've been watching too many of these dystopian US science fiction films, whether, they've seen The Matrix and they said to themselves, ha, this is what we want. Something like that, because, I mean, this isn't really realistically possible. And it has a fantastic quality, but it's clearly a real agenda. And that is in itself disturbing.
What worries me is that, okay, I mean, everyone's having fun with Justin Trudeau's speech.
Yeah.
Everyone's now, okay, now we can finally talk about it out in the open. And it's funny to watch Justin Trudeau say these things out in the open and for it to finally be revealed. But the truth of the matter is that, when countries have tried this, for example, the Soviet Union, I mean, it's become damn bloody. I mean, it ends. These are catastrophes with tens of hundreds of millions of people suffering and dying. How would you, and the fact that they're serious about this? I mean, they obviously have conferences, they have podcasts, they have agendas. I mean, they've thought about this for a long time. Even Justin Trudeau said, in his speech that now we can, because of the pandemic, everything that we've been planning, we couldn't launch. But now with the pandemic, we have the opportunity to launch it. The pandemic is now the excuse that they need to launch this initiative. How would you describe this Great Reset? Is it global communism? Is it global Marxism? Is it global fascism? Is it a mix of all these things? Is it neoliberal? I mean, if you had to kind of describe this from an economic perspective, what kind of philosophy and policy is this?
I would say that if it resembles anything most, it is Mussolinian fascism, actually, which Mussolini's conception. I mean, there were a lot of things about Italian fascism which, made a part of the package. And for one thing, Italian fascism was highly nationalist, which this isn't. And of course, it had, the belief in the leader, who was Mussolini, which this doesn't. But it did have a corporatist ideology, and it did have an idea of control and of planning. I mean, this is very much what the fascist ideology of Mussolini's. So that's perhaps what it resembles most. But it has some fundamental problems. Firstly, by definition, it is profoundly anti-democratic. To be completely clear about this system that we've been hearing about, which has been talked about, is completely incompatible with democratic government. You can't operate a system of choices within this kind of system. I mean, democracy is all about choice. It's all about exercising choice. In this kind of system, you don't have a choice. So it is profoundly authoritarian with aspirations to be totalitarian. It is corporatist. It has elements of central planning. But of course, ultimately, and this is again where it differs from all those ideologies that you mentioned, it has no ultimate ideological, principle that can attract people to it. Communism attracted tens of millions of people. This is just a sterile, ant colony type vision of the future. Very difficult to see who it would attract or would appeal to, except a tiny minority of technocratic oligarchs and people of that kind. Bear in mind that it seeks to obliterate states. As I said, it's inconsistent with states. It's a patriotism, feelings of belonging to your society, feelings of belonging to your community, that goes. Feelings of belonging to your family, that goes. At the same time, what vision does it really give which would be attractive to people? What overriding idea does it have which would be attractive to people? And that makes it even more dangerous, because even more than these ideologies that we've just been talking about can only be enforced. It can only be forced on people. They will never accept it, not under any circumstance.
Can you make the argument, though, that the thing that these guys are looking to bind the masses with, to bind the masses together, is one of, I would say, maybe two things: fear, the health security aspect. In other words, buy into this Great Reset, because if you're part of the Great Reset, then you could live your life without a fear of. You can live your life with health security. That's what they're saying, with the security that you'll be able to not get infected by something. So there's this health security component. Then there's the climate change component, in that, if you buy into this Great Reset, then it is the only way forward to save the planet, to make it sustainable. So we'll actually have a planet Earth by having a Great Reset. So, I mean, can you make that argument that it looks to unite, people through fear?
Yes,
through fear, but that's the ideology there.
Well, that's
is the fear aspect.
But that's the problem. You see, fear, and that's of course being used. I mean, all the other societies, communism, fascism, Nazism, whatever we did, fear has been an important component to them. But the problem with this is that it doesn't offer hope. you have to have some degree of hope also. You can't just build a system on fear. And I'm going to say something else. I mean, I do know a bit about economics. This is completely unworkable. It cannot work. I mean, even with all the technologies that we're talking about, it cannot be made. It simply cannot be made to work in the way that the people who are talking about it expect it to. That it is impossible. You can't put things together like that. Economics is an extension of human society. It's human beings that create economies. This tries to substitute for that a technocratic vision in which a certain conception of economies are imposed on human societies. That simply is impossible. So it will be enforced, and it'll be enforced in increasingly authoritarian ways, and it will fail. and it will fail disastrously. It is not a utopian vision. It is a profoundly dystopian one, and it will end disastrously.
Okay, so my final question is, okay, at the center of all of this is the World Economic Forum. Then you have the IMF, you have the United Nations, you had a lot of these, say, globalist institutions. But at the center of it is the World Economic Forum. Obviously, you could say that you'll have institutions like the European Union, which would be a very easy buy-in to this Great Reset. You'll have a country like Canada, for example, with a prime minister like Justin Trudeau, which, you know, is very happy to buy into this Great Reset. A sleepy Joe Biden would be very happy to buy into this type of Great Reset. A Trump would not. But let's just say a sleepy Joe would buy into it. Would you be able to get countries like Russia, China, Brazil, Bolsonaro in Brazil? I'm trying to think of other countries, you know, that are out of the EU Atlanticist kind of loop. Would you be able to get them to buy into this new world order, this fourth industrial revolution?
Absolutely not. No way. And they're not going to buy into it. They will resist it. They will oppose it. And because they're not going to try and imitate these, as I said, completely surreal economic models, their economies will succeed better because they oppose it too. So of course they're not. It's not going to work. I mean, you said that, you know, the EU will go for it. Canada will go for it. Well, the leaders of these countries might want to try to go for it, but they will run into resistance. Just as, you know, you have resistance in Britain, just as you have resistance in the United States. That's what Trump is all about at the end of the day. You can't repress everybody, arrest everyone, terrorize, you know, frighten everyone all the time. In the end, what it will do is it will provoke more resistance, and it will fail. It will fail at every level. The problem is not, the danger is not that this thing is going to succeed. It's going to be how much damage and how much suffering it does before it fails.
Why do you think they're trying this? Final question there. Why do you think they're actually, why do you think you have a leader like Justin Trudeau talking about this in a very serious manner? I mean, he's serious.
I get to say straight away why. I think where this all originates, I mean, you're talking about the World Economic Forum, for example, where this all originates is in the post-Cold War world, especially since the 90s. You had these systems of, you know, technocratic international or multinational bodies being created. They create their own bureaucracies. They're not anchored in states anymore. You have people who are able to move money around very freely in ways that has not happened before. You've had international trade, and this has all happened at the same time as we've seen this huge advance in IT technologies, in information technologies, in all that sort of thing. So you have within this group the people who are in charge of the IT technologies, in charge of these various, you know, international bodies, and in the big corporations and financial institutions that have benefited from all of this. You have amongst them, a feeling that they are the future. This is how the world will be shaped. They think they have the technology. They're no longer anchored in their own states and nations and societies. Remember, many of them don't even pay taxes to them. I mean, you know, they live in a completely free-floating way. They've come to despise their own nations and societies. They become very hostile to their own people, and they provide a mass of people, not objectively in terms of the whole of humanity, but in terms of themselves, several hundreds of thousands, perhaps even a million or two people who are a powerful constituency for that sort of thing. And you have also institutions like the European Commission and the people who work there, the European Central Bank. They're all part of this. And you have all the people who operate around them. You have the people who want to be one day a part of these institutions. I mean, that's what Merkel, Justin Trudeau, Macron, all of them ultimately are all about. So it's a made for them type of ideology. They believe they're the wave of the future. They are very hostile to anybody who stands in their way. They believe they have the technology. They believe they have the economic and financial architecture. They're not very clever. I've said this many times. I mean, I've met some of these people. They're not actually very, very clever. I mean, this is an ideology for fools, actually. I want to say that because it's true. And that's why ultimately it's going to fail. But they will do a lot of harm in the meantime.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of people are going to suffer, but hopefully you don't get to the point where stuff like this actually takes hold and you get the levels of suffering that we saw, for example, in the Soviet Union under systems like communism, or under systems like what Mussolini had.
Oh, no way. I mean, it will never, well, I mean, it will create a lot of suffering and a lot of trouble. And, we're having pressures on societies. I mean, we're going through a major political crisis now in the United States. Who would ever have expected that? And be very clear, the reason that's happening is because the people who support these agendas want to drive a certain outcome. And they don't really care. As I said, they don't care about constitutions, democracies, elections, those kind of things. I mean, so that's what that is all about. And that will create major tensions. But in the end, it will fail. The only question is, as I said, how much damage it does before it does fail. But fail it will.
All right, we'll leave it there. Alexander Barkers, thank you very much. Guys, like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Hit that like, share this video, share this channel with everybody you know, and please visit us on Rumble, on BitChute, and on ODYSEE. We are on all those platforms. Check us out there, and we're growing really, really well on those platforms. So you'll find the link in the description box down below. PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar. Please donate to us on those networks. We also have a link for Bitcoin as well. You can donate to us via crypto with Bitcoin, and go to the Duran shop, pick up some merchandise, Duran shirts, mugs, hoodies, sweatshirts, all kinds of great things.
Hats, amazing hats like these, all these wonderful things in our shop. And I've had the very exciting news from Alex that we're now going to have a whole new range of brilliant shirts designed by a great artist. Alex will tell you a bit about him, one of the great artists, Mr. Ikonomou in Greece. And there you go. You can get a sense well, it's just exactly what we've been talking about. It's the dance with, the strings being pulled by all sorts of people that you can see there, but which is, topical for our program. But a great artist, shirts especially for the Duran, available to our viewers. And, you won't have anyone else wearing a shirt like that. So you have all that great pleasure of having something made by an artist, a fine and wonderful artist, and it'll be specifically for you. And all our products in our shop are amazing. The feedback we get on what we sell is terrific. You support our channel by buying things from our shop. You support our channel by finding us on Patreon, Subscribestar, PayPal. And of course, you should also search us out on our various other platforms, BitChute, LBRY, ODYSEE, Rumble, all those places that Alex was talking about. So support us, look us out at our shop, visit us where we are, and come to our next broadcast.
All right, now we'll put a link to the shirts by Dimitrios Ikonomou. I'll put a link for those shirts at the Duran shop, so you can see those shirts there. We have New Zealand, Australia, UK, US, and Greece. He's made special designs. He's going to be making more special country designs as well with time. And take a look at those. I'll put a direct link for those products. And yeah, that's it. Really, really nice stuff at the Duran shop. Take care, everybody.